Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motorcast. This is your host, Dave. I got online special guest, Bits and Pieces, nostalgia Nitro funny car driver, Keith Davidson. How you doing, Keith?
I'm doing well, Dave. How about yourself?
Not bad at all. How's the weather out by you?
Very warm. It was close to 100 today. 97, I think I saw as the high.
It was about that Saturday. It was about that temperature out here. Right.
It's been brutal, but it's you don't have to shovel sunshine, that we say at work. So
yeah,
we're dealing with it.
Yeah, right now it's only 81 here. So now, Keith, what got you into drag racing?
Well, that goes back to, probably 1975. My mother had a boyfriend who said, "Hey, you want to go to Lebanon Valley Dragways, our home track up here in upstate New York?" And they used to have, they used to have 4 or 5 funny car shows a year, 2 summer shows, spring show and a fall show. And he's like, "Having these funny cars at Lebanon Valley Dragway, do you want to go with your mom and I tonight?" And I was like, "Sure." And I had never seen them before. So we went out there, and that was, I believe it was July of 1975. And at that event, Costi Ivanov was running the Boston Shaker, and he had a pretty nasty accident and wound up going off the track and actually killing a spectator that night.
Wow.
Well, for me, it was, what am I doing here? I spent the rest of the night in the bathroom. I was scared of the funny cars whenever they came up. Didn't want to see them again. So about a year or so later, my next door neighbor said, "Hey, we're going to Lebanon Valley. Do you want to go for one of the funny car shows?" And I was probably 7 years old or so at the time. And I said, "You know what? Yeah, let's try this again." And I was hooked at that point. And part of what got me so interested in it was at that show and subsequently shows in the future at Lebanon Valley. Stars of the day, Al Segrini, Tim Kushai, Dale Poldy, they would allow me to sit in their car. You sit there. Back then, you could walk right up to the car and watch them service it. Wasn't any ropes then, and they would just pick me up, put me in their car, and I would just have these just dreams of becoming a Nitro funny car pilot. So that's how it all started for me, Dave.
So, what year did you begin driving funny cars?
Yes, officially it wouldn't be until 2004 was our first funny car. I'd purchased an Altered back in, I think, 2002. Did bracket racing before then, and decided I wanted to go super comp racing. So I always wanted to have an Altered. I like the fuel Altereds, and I love funny cars. But once you start, doing things that, the dream of a funny car driver kind of dissipated, and I was a bracket racer. It was easy to do, relatively affordable. So we brought this Altered out in Utica by us, and tried to run it in super comp a little bit. We always had blower motors, 2 carbs and a supercharger. That was kind of our MO. I've always had something with a supercharger on it since I started drag racing. And it wasn't very consistent for super comp racing. Well, a friend of mine who was helping me out with this Altered said to me, he goes, "Hey, why don't you get a funny car body and put it on this? It might be a little easier to drive. You won't be all out in the open like that." I said, "Look," it's a great idea. I said, "But that's something that a path I don't want to go down, because that's my passion. That's what I've always wanted to do." Well, he kept, needling me. We finally found a funny car body. In the spring of, I think it must have been the spring of 2004, we went down to southern Pennsylvania and bought a Camaro body from Don Beebe. It was wound up being the Sweetman Brothers' old alcohol Camaro, and it was pretty rough shape, but it was my funny car body, and we wound up actually just throwing some black primer on it and running it for the summer. So it was 2004 was our first year with a funny car, and it was also the first year we attended the funny car reunion in Englishtown, which I believe was their 3rd funny car reunion as a participant.
So your first funny car, what was the name of the first funny car?
It was Bits and Pieces. It was one of those things where the first funny car, I had a small block Chevy. I was always a small block Chevy fan, and we had an iron block, small block Chevy with iron heads on it, and we wound up getting some, steel rods in it, running on alcohol, and a lot of the things were homemade. Just the budget wasn't there. We fabricate things, and it was truly just bits and pieces we found in our garage to get this thing together and run. And when I used to go watch the street races here in upstate New York, there was a car back in the early '80s or mid '80s that was called Bits and Pieces, and the name always stuck out in my mind. And I just said, well, this funny car is all a bunch of bits and pieces put together, so let's put that on it. And at the time, I had my own sign making and vinyl business, so we just made up a little vinyl decal for the side of it. We went to Englishtown with this black primer Camaro with the name Bits and Pieces on it, and we had a lot of fun with it, and ran okay for what it was.
Right. So now, do you remember who signed your license for Funny Car?
Let's see here. Who signed my license? It wasn't anybody famous. It was a couple of advanced ET racers at Lebanon Valley that signed my license, and the names escape me. One of the gentlemen came up to me at a car show in April up here, and he jogged my memory. He's like, "Remember, I signed your license for you," and I can't remember his name, but it was it was a great experience because we actually got all 6 license runs done in one day, so it was kind of neat.
So the car you're currently driving is a Pontiac Firebird?
Yeah, Trans Am. Yep, Pontiac 77 Pontiac Trans Am, and that's always been my dream, if you will. I was a huge Dale Poldy fan. When he came out with his War Eagle in '77, that was the most gorgeous car I'd ever seen, and I've always wanted to have a '77 Trans Am. Just they catch my eye. I just like the body lines in them. It's something I've always wanted.
Now, what kind of engine do you have in that?
We run a big block Chevy. It's an aftermarket block. It's actually a cast KB Olds block, which is it's a skirted main block, so it's got really strong bottom end with double cross bolted center mains, and then we've got a set of steel heads on it, and it's a 3.76 stroke crank and a 4.310 bore. It winds up being about 438 cubic inches.
So how big is the fuel pump?
It's a legal rage 21-gallon pump. We run the whole pump. We don't bleed anything off. We're just really just getting comfortable with the tune-up. It's been it's been a long process for us, but we're really starting to get things together for it, and it's all starting to come together, and it's just a matter now of actually building enough boost to burn the fuel that we have. We've made a lot of progress in the last year with the tune-up, and things are looking good for us.
That's good. So what kind of tires are you running on?
Goodyears. I've always been a fan of Goodyear slicks. I've had Hoosiers. I've had M&H's. I've just always liked the Goodyear slicks, and we just wind up getting set of Goodyear slicks whenever we can.
Okay, so now since you've been driving the Pontiac, what's been the quickest ET you've had?
Last fall we ran 692 at 180. We wound up coasting through just because it's the tune-up is really on the safe side, and it winds up going extremely rich on the top end. On us, we've got to make more boost. So it was one of those things where me being the owner and driver, I'm very in tune with the car, and the car runs great to 800-900 feet, and then you can hear the pitch in the engine change. And when you're in a Nitro, anything like that should catch your attention. So I've been very cautious with this not to hurt things, and 800 feet starts to burble a little bit, 900 feet gets a little bit worse, and about 1,000 feet it just kind of nosed over. And at that point I just lifted, but it was encouraging. I mean, it had early numbers indicated high 660 or low 670 pass. We ultimately want to be in the 650 range with the tune-up. It's a match race tune-up. It's not a California setup. It's got steel heads on it, so we have to be careful with how we treat them because they are prone to cracking. We've got some small cracks we keep an eye on. If we get a set of aluminum heads someday, we can certainly turn a wick up on it, but that's all in the future.
So would you ever go out to Bakersfield?
Love to. Yeah, I've got a crew member that says 5 years we're doing it, but I think a lot of things have to come into place. I'm excited if it takes off. Their 590 class is much more reasonable than the nostalgia class out there, which is great. I mean, I enjoy watching those guys run. I really, have a, it's awesome to see the power those guys make with a 21-gallon pump and 671 blower. But, for somebody with our budget, it's just out of the reach for us. So the 590 class is something that's, we won't run 590s with steel heads, but could we run some 630s? Yeah, probably we could. And would it get us into the show? You never know. I mean, it's Nitro and things happen, and just got to be in the right place at the right time.
Right. So now with this Firebird, how many passes have you made with this car?
We've probably got about a dozen or so runs on with this body. This chassis, the whole car itself, I purchased back in 2010, and it had a 95 old Achieva body on it when I purchased it from a group in Delaware, and we may do with that for 6-7 years. And I didn't like the old Achieva body, so I kind of jokingly made some Firebird decals up to the grill of it, and we affectionately called it the Oldsmobile. And we got the tune-up squared away with that body on it. It was an older carbon fiber body that, was a little beat up, but so if something happened to it, we didn't want to have our brand new body to be damaged. We wanted to have a good solid tune-up before we ran our new body. And we've been running this Firebird body since the end of 2016. We made a couple checkout passes at Island Dragway in New Jersey, and then we ran some MAC races in 2017. And we got a few more dates set up here for 2018.
So where are you going to be running at this year?
Our first match race is going to be Island's Funny Car Throwdown, which is Sunday, August 5th. We're in a match race there once again with Chuck Exton's Wild and Crazy car. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got an exciting event. We're going to the Maple Grove's Glory Days event, and we're actually racing Bruce Larson's USA 1 during that event, so that's exciting.
Then a third one?
We're going to be hitting up the Nostalgia Drags at Lebanon Valley Dragway in September.
Okay. So now, when you take the car out, how many crew members do you have, and who are your crew members?
There's four of us that are in the core. There's myself, Jeff Brott. We've got Ron Coca, who's a friend, crew member, and also one of our sponsors, and Jeremy Rourke. And that's the core four of us. And then we've got both my kids and my wife will assist us. My boys will sell T-shirts. They'll get their hands dirty and work on the car. That makes sure that we're all clicking and everything's going right together. And we have a couple other people that help us out. I've got a friend of mine, Bill Bushman, who is going to be coming on board here this year to give us a hand. So, and we've got some past crew members that when they get time, they give us a hand. I got a gentleman who helped me out quite a bit when we ran the alcohol car, John Napoli, who will fill in, when needed. And then we've got my friend Jim Jones, who's helped in the past, who can help at times. And then another friend from my high school, John Supp, can come out and help at times too. So they all have an interest in it. But the core four, we're the four that are there, pretty much, all the time, just getting the car down the track.
Now, your two boys, how old are your two boys?
My son Alex is 18, and my youngest son Justin is 13.
So you think you ever get them behind the wheel drag racing?
Don't know. Justin certainly has an interest in it mechanically. My eldest son Alex is always a stick and ball sports fan. He enjoys going to the races. He enjoys the colors and the artwork of the cars. He's very into the art and stuff of it, and he has fun. But I think maybe at some point, if Justin has the itch to do it, we'll see how things go here. But like I said, few years in the future yet.
Yeah, he's only 13. He can do the junior dragster thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they do that to 16 or 18.
I think it's 18. I think you can do that until you're 18.
Yeah. So now, who are your sponsors?
We get help from my friend Ron Coca. He's got his own privateer trucking company. He helps us out with fuel and other items. He's always there to lend a hand. We've got just on board for the Maple Grove and Island Dragway events, Lucas Oil is on board for that, and then we've got Ohio Crankshaft came through for us, which was a big help. And we've got associate sponsors in the facility where I work, which is Gill's Garage. They help us out with spark plugs and other, brake clean and other supplies and stuff like that. And then we had some help from a local body shop that gave us a hand early on with the transformation of the Firebird body. And then I've got a good friend of mine, Rocky Roxlow, who runs his own garage and shop down in North Jersey, who supplied us with a bunch of stuff to get the Firebird body done. He donated a bunch of tin work and chromoly tubing for treating the car and stuff like that. So a lot of people were instrumental in getting the Firebird body up and running. It was a 4-year process, and getting the body we got from Kansas that was all dilapidated to the current stage that it's in now.
Yeah, the body looks beautiful.
Yeah, it came out great. My friend Jeff spent hundreds of hours. We stretched it 8 inches. The right side of the body was caved in from a fire that it had. The back was all broke up. He wound up, repairing, doing all the glass work in his garage, and we wound up tinning it and treating it in his garage. We would make cardboard templates up and run down to Rockies in New Jersey and use his bead roller and do the final trimming back up here in New York. And we were hoping to have one of the local body shops paint it, but they got busy and they couldn't paint it. And finally, Jeff just wound up actually putting plastic up in his garage and painting the 3-stage paint, the candy orange glow paint in his garage, and it came out beautiful for the facility he had to work with. We really are proud of it.
Yeah, it is beautiful, like I said.
Thanks, Dave.
No, you're welcome. So when you first started watching funny cars when you're young, were there any drivers that inspired you?
I guess probably 2 of them right off the bat. Dale Poldy, always was a huge fan of his. I know him and Mike were doing a lot with with a lower budget than a lot of the other teams of their era. And I really, until they got the Miller sponsorship, they were independents and running hard as independents. So I always admired those two. And I was always a Don Snake Perdone fan. I mean, he was right up there also. I mean, I just, how could you be a kid in the 70s and not like the Snake? I mean, he was just phenomenal back in that era.
Yeah, we just lost the Mongoose.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And always fan of Tom's, but when it came up to the line, I was always a Snake fan.
Yeah. So now, how about currently? You have any drivers you look up to out there?
I don't watch too much of the big show stuff anymore. For me, it's the speed and the pageantry is awesome. 10,000 horsepower and speeds are running, but when you get to the point where it's hard for a working man to identify the insurmountable amount of money they put into these things, I would much rather watch the smaller big show, the guys out in California that run, the Bucky Austins and those guys out there that they have a big budget, but they're running out there. But I guess if I had to really say I look up to somebody now, a current driver, it would still be John Force. I mean, he I admire him because he really wasn't into anything. He was on fire. He crashed. He earned it through a lot of hard work in the 70s, and he's still out there doing it. So I still root for John whenever I do catch it on TV or read about it by a national dragster.
Yeah, then he's been having a lot of problems lately, and people giving him flack, saying he needs to retire and all that crap.
No, and I get it. There's got to be a point in your life where you say, am I being dangerous? Personal opinion, I think he sorely misses Mike Neff this year, but it seems like they're starting to turn the corner. I do want to say one more thing too, Dave. That as far as big show drivers, I had a really positive experience with my eldest son, Alex. Gosh, it's got to be probably back in, I think, 2007 when Matt Hagan first came out. We were wandering the pits of Englishtown, and when I was young, it was always great to go up to the cars, or even somewhat the ropes in Englishtown and be close to the cars. And nowadays you just can't do that. You have to, they got them packed in so tight you really can't get a good look at the cars. Well, he wanted to see John Force and Kenny Bernstein and all the Tony Schumacher and all those guys, and they were all roped off and he couldn't get to them. And we started walking down towards Matt Hagan's trailer, and no one was there. He looks at us and goes, "Hey guys, you want to come in and take a look?" And he invites us into his pits, and he was now looking. He goes, "I can't." My son Alex is probably 7 or 8 years old. He goes, "I can't put you in the car." He said, "But do you have any questions? I'm happy to answer them for you." And that really stood out to me, and I've always been a Matt Hagan fan since then. He just saw a dad and his son walk through the pits and invited us in, and spent probably 15-20 minutes with us, and it was something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's why I always say all the time. That's why the nostalgia racing is good, because you could get to the driver. You have access to all the drivers.
Absolutely, and that's what we try to emulate too. I mean, we really try whenever we do our shows to have ourselves accessible. We don't want to be crammed in, so people can't see us. They can't see us work on the cars, because for us, we don't run big numbers. We don't, run the 250 miles an hour. So it's all about the show and interacting with the fans, and at times, putting the kid in the seat and, having the parents take a picture of them in the seat, and just interacting with the fans, and just bringing back those memories that, got me hooked.
Right. Yep, I agree with you. So now, what was it like to get behind the wheel for the first time of a Nitro Funny car?
Well, it was very interesting. That was my first pass was in August of 2009. We had taken my Monza. We purchased an J. Ed Horton car from Dennis Salzwimmer back at the end of 2005. And that was our second funny car. We ran that successfully on alcohol for quite a few years. And then in towards the end of 2008, a friend of mine, crew member Al Napier, and Connecticut businessman talked me into going nitro racing. And we decided to do the conversion in 2009. And then towards the end, actually it was September 2009, we debuted the car at Lebanon Valley. And I had a friend of mine making shakedown passes. And I remember talking to Dale Poldy, and he goes, when you get started off, he goes, the best thing is if you're going to tune the car, you put somebody else in it, so you concentrate on what you need to do to tune the car. So I had a driver I was very confident in, a good friend of mine, Derek Lobin. And we ran it at Lebanon Valley, shook the tires, it was an aborted run, and then that was it. And we were going to Maple Grove a couple weeks later. I used to do a lot of promoting for the alcohol funny car portion of the Glory. Actually, used to be the Geishas at the Grove at the time, at Maple Grove. And I had asked Lex Studis at the time, who was a general manager, who we just lost a few months ago, can I bring my nitro car down and make a test pass with it? And he goes, absolutely. Well, this is going to be my first time driving the car. And I had never even sat in the car before on nitro, because I always had somebody else in the car while I was outside tuning it, setting the timing, setting the barrel valve, stuff like that. I'll never forget it. I sit on the starting line at Maple Grove, and they get a signal to fire the car up, and this thing just comes alive, and it's shaking, and it's cackling, and I'm like, this is phenomenal. It was just such an overload of the senses, and in my head runs through my mind what to do so many times. I don't want to screw up. I want to make sure I'm doing well. And do a decent burnout, back up, and I had planned, a 300-foot shut-off pass, because I had never driven the car before. And I'll never forget it. I launched the car, and I liken it to, like, when you see the Star Wars thing, when they go into warp speed, the car just leaped out of its skin, and, it ran hard for what it was, and it was like the whole warp drive thing going. And I really wanted to stick with it and keep going further, but I said, no, you're going to do a 300-foot pass, you're going to look at the spark plugs, and you're going to come back and you're going to make, maybe a half-track 800-foot pass after this. And that was just phenomenal. Well, long story short, we wound up actually cracking that 30-year-old frame and that pass, and we were done for the day. And that was wound up runs it for us. I sold it to a gentleman out in Minnesota who currently, I think he tackles it. I don't know if he actually runs the car or not. He runs it as a Blitzkrieg Monza now out of Minnesota. I can't remember what his Dave Reich is his name. So, but that was my first experience behind the wheel of a Nitro car, and something I'll never forget.
Okay, now, for when you get ready for a weekend of drag racing, what goes into preparation to get the car ready?
Well, we depending on how things were before, we'll either pull the engine out and check it, or we'll just leak it down. If it leaks well, and we didn't have any signs of any kind of damage in the oil filter, we'll just wind up servicing the fuel system, draining the fuel system, making sure all the lines and stuff are purged out, and then we wind up just inspecting the car, nut and bolting the car, looking for cracks, things like that, checking the clutch discs, make sure they're okay. Usually after show, we'll drain the transmission and just get rid of the transmission fluid, because I've had problems in the past with the transmission, and I just figured the fluid's cheap enough to exchange. That way we get a look, we can hopefully catch something we've got a problem with the transmission, we can catch it early enough. Then we'll mix up some fuel, just run over and double check the timing, and just pretty much it. And like I said, if we wind up actually seeing something that we don't like in a leak down, then we have to pull the cylinder heads on it, take a look, see if we've scuffed the piston, or if the rings are worn out on it. Check the bearings, obviously, make sure the bearings are okay. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, we probably will be wind up doing more teardowns this year and in the future, because we're starting to run the car harder. We don't. I mean, just by design, we haven't been running a ton of boost with the system that we have, and it's been a very easy, very forgiving tune-up for us so far.
Okay, now, what are some of your favorite tracks to run on?
Well, I guess probably my favorite track would have to be Maple Grove. We enjoy the facility there. We've always been treated very nicely at Maple Grove. They've always been great to us there. The track it's a great setting. The air is usually really good there. A lot of trees around for a lot of oxygen. We've run very well there with our alcohol car. Liked running at Englishtown also. That's something that's really was a shock to see this year. That closing up. I mean, I've always dreamed of running at Englishtown. I was able to run there, with my alcohol car. And something I always, was looking forward to is maybe running the Nitro car at Englishtown, but that's not going to happen. I guess probably I enjoy running at my home track, Lebanon Valley. We get family and friends that can come out and see us here, and the track itself, it's a great track. It's it's a nice long track, plenty of shutdown, and it's relatively smooth. They do a great job prepping the track there. They got a lot of quick bracket cars that run there, so they treat me really well there also. But we've run all over. I mean, we ran the alcohol car. We ran anywhere from Cecil County, Numidia, Atco, Lancaster, which is a little 8th mile drag track up by Buffalo, Epping, New Hampshire. I think where else we ran with it. Maple Grove, Beaver Springs, Pennsylvania. We ran there. Beaver Springs Dragway. So quite a few places in Northeast and Middle Atlantic states. Okay.
Now, where do you get all your your safety products, and where do you purchase your safety stuff from?
Well, it's as most people do on a budget, you kind of look for stuff that you can get that's used. And I've got a nice Dennis Tiller fire suit that I've got now. We run Simpson boots, Simpson gloves, and I've got an Impact Nitro helmet with a fresh air system in it. And we've got it's a next gen head and neck restraint system that we run. I'm trying to think what else we run. Stroud diaper on the car, DJ blower bag, DJ tranny bag. I think that's pretty much it as far as safety equipment goes, and I can think off the top of my head. DJ seat belts too.
Okay, now, what would you consider to be some of the milestones of your drag racing career so far?
I guess I befriended Lou Scrow. We were running, and Lou, we ran decent for what it was. I think we ran some low 8-second elapsed times, which back in the early 2000s, if you were running 750s, one of these alcohol cars, you were the guy. And Lou was in the low 720s with his car, trying to run in the sixes, and he invited me to go to the funny car reunion. He goes, "You gotta come down, bring that down, have some fun." And I'll never forget. He comes into my pits. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "you got some money coming towards you. Why don't you go to payout when I get your money?" I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we got some money for you for running your car." And walked up to the payout one, and I forget what it was, $250 to $300 for running my funny car. It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can get used to doing this, and things progressed from there. So that was probably one of the biggest things for me was getting paid to run a funny car. And then I guess secondarily, probably have to be running at my home track with a Nitro car. Last fall at the Dover Drag Reunion, that was pretty cool. I mean, to run a Nitro car at my home track where it all began for me. It's hard to say, as far as drag racing goes, if it gets any better than that. I mean, I'm sure I would, I wanted to perform a little bit better. But all things considered, where we were at the time, with a tune-up that was we're just coming in around the corner with this tune-up that we had. We ran well. The car was home in one piece. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun racing Chuck X and his crew. They were a great crew to hang out with. It was just a good day. I would say that's probably the biggest day of my drag racing career, was just spending the weekend with those guys and just running successfully there.
Okay, now Keith, throughout your drag racing career, have you had any accidents or close accidents at all?
Yeah, we had an episode at that Lancaster Dragway back in 2008 when we had our Monza. We were in alcohol combination, and back then in 2007, we probably had the best alcohol car in the area. At that point, Lou Scrow had decided to go into top alcohol funny car racing, and Rocky Perone, it just started to debut his Screaming Eagle car, which was at that point just the killer for the alcohol cars. He was running mid-sixes with it at the time, and had everybody just, all the rest of us were running low sevens or high sixes. We were just looking to catch up with them. Well, in 2008, Rocky and I were pretty much the only two alcohol cars up and running, and I remember he had John Headley running with him at the time in 2008, and we wound up going to this small 8-mile track at Lancaster Speedway, which is just outside of Buffalo, and they used the front stretch of their circle track as their drag track. And twofold, Rocky had the Screaming Eagle car, which was about a half a second quicker than my car at the time, and we were there to put on a show. So I always wanted to treat, whether it was Rocky that was driving or Headley that was driving, so I was amped up and ready to go. And I remember it was the second pass of the weekend, and I got out on John Headley, and I didn't hear him. And then just the finish line, I saw the nose of the car come across, and I think he just bit me at the finish line. And all of a sudden, the nose disappeared out of my sight. And I had forgotten at Lancaster, if you're in the left-hand lane, there's a bump. And I was over too far, and I hit the bump. And at Lancaster, we would run 155, 157 in the 8th. And if you were running that fast there, you had to have the shootout when you crossed the finish line, or else it was a very short shutdown, and the shutdown actually turned to the right and went around actually to the infield of the circle track. Well, I was late on the chute, and I hit the bump, and I panicked, and I grabbed a whole handful of the brake. And eyewitnesses say the car came 3 or 4 feet off the ground in the back end and dropped down. And when it did that, it had a chrome drop axle on the front of this car. And being 30-year-old tubing, the chrome axle broke on me. And the tire curled up underneath the body. And at that point, I was along for the ride. The car veered off towards the right, and I was kind of following the path of the return road, but I was short. I wasn't going to make the return road. I was actually cutting through the grass at the time, and all I got thinking was, oh my goodness, where's John Headley, because he's going to T-bone me because he was in the right-hand lane. Well, luckily he had his shootout and was well behind me, and I just veered off because I couldn't steer the car into the grass. All the while, all the smoke and stuff is filling the car, and I'm thinking I'm on fire. So, of course, what do? I grab the fire bottles, squeeze the fire bottles, and I remember unbuckling myself and popping the escape hatch, and I see the safety crew guy poke his head in the side window, and I remember, I'll never forget, I jumped out of the escape hatch, and I jumped over him as he's talking to me, asking me, "Are you okay?" Because I saw smoke, and I wanted out. I didn't want any part of that. I was out of the car. Well, what it was the tire was hitting on the body as it was, cruising along the pavement, and the tire was creating all the tire smoke underneath the body. So it made a mess. The fire system did its job, but it made a mess. It wasn't on fire. So that's the only thing I've had. Other than that, pretty much not a whole heck of a lot of drama with my car. I did have a little bit of excitement with my friend Rocky Rockslow's time bomb car. When we first debuted that, it had a torsion bar front end on it, and at the time, the car was really evil handling, and we had a couple of close calls with that, where I wound up on two wheels at Maple Grove, stayed in my lane, thankfully never hit any cones with it, and then up at Epping, New Hampshire. Once again, the car would get to be 700-800 feet out and just make this evil move. And they actually wound up subsequently after I stepped out of the driver's seat, locking down the front end of the car and scaling the car, and they run very well with it now. But up until then, that car was an evil handling Vega, and it was a handful to drive. I remember Bobby Toth coming up to me in Maple Grove one year going, "How did you ever drive that car?" He goes, I can't keep it in my lane. I keep hitting cones with it. And I said, "Bobby, I could never drive the car." But other than those few episodes, it's been pretty uneventful, thankfully.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're at the fun question portion of the interview here. So, do you have any hobbies outside of drag racing?
Not per se. I mean, other than the car takes up a lot of time, as you can imagine. And then we try to just try to do things together as a family whenever possible. We just I guess not really a lot. It's just one of those things where it's been, for me, it's been all about the race car pretty much for the last 15 years. I don't hunt. I never got into that. I never got into fishing. I enjoy watching my kids play ball and stuff like that. So in the spring when they play ball, I try to make games to watch them play. And both the boys play baseball. Well, my eldest son Alex, he's in college now, but my youngest son Justin, he plays soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then baseball in the spring. But other than that, it's pretty much racing and then work.
Okay. Now, what's your favorite food to eat?
I guess for me, it's probably, to me, it's a burger on the grill is probably my go-to. I really enjoy just a medium rare burger on the grill with cheese, and if you're really going crazy, put some bacon on it. We cook out when we can. Also enjoy Mexican food, tacos, stuff like that we'll have. I guess probably favorite thing would be a good old-fashioned burger on the grill.
Okay, now what's your favorite beverage?
Let's see here. Drinking a lot of water lately with the heat. But I guess, in the summertime, I'll maybe have a Corona or two. I enjoy Corona with a lime in it once in a while. We'll partake in some margaritas once in a while. My father kind of got us into margaritas. He had a beach house down in the Jersey Shore that we would go visit him at, and he whipped up some margaritas down there, and we enjoy that once in a while for a treat, especially in the summertime.
Okay. Now, what's your favorite music to listen to?
Let's see here. Gosh, I like pretty much any kind of music. Some metal. I'm a big fan. I'm starting to. My oldest son got me back into country music. My wife and I were big country music fans back in the early '90s, early '90s, during the Clint Black, Alan Jackson eras. Kind of moved away from that. Started listening to some of the alternative rock. Got to enjoy Shinedown, Breaking Benjamin. Even some of the newer Disturbed stuff. I'll enjoy. My youngest son plays alto saxophone, so I really enjoy jazz. My wife likes classical music, so I appreciate classical music. So I kind of like anything. I'm a real fan of music. I enjoy music. It's a big part of my life. It was something that I enjoyed growing up as a kid, just having music around me the whole time. So, but I guess probably if I had to say something, it's probably Led Zeppelin, Metallica is probably a couple of my go-to groups. And I enjoy musically the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think musically they're one of the best groups out there, between the guitar playing and the sounds that they get also. So kind of everything, Dave.
So now with Metallica, you prefer older Metallica or newer Metallica?
I've come to appreciate their newer stuff. I guess with the one caveat is the One Saint Anger album I didn't enjoy, but pretty much anything they make, I like. I like the load and reload era. I know some people don't enjoy that, but that's probably some of my favorite work of theirs. Is that mid '90s sound that they developed. I like that. And honestly, probably if I had to pick a favorite album, it would probably be the Black Album. Probably my favorite album.
Yeah, it's a good album. Then I like Death Magnetic and the latest one, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. They're both good.
Yeah, I appreciate all the new stuff too. I realize as they age, it gets harder for them to do what they did, and when you hear them do it, still it's pretty impressive.
Right. So now, do you have a most embarrassing moment in drag racing?
Yeah, probably. I was thinking about this. I don't quite remember what year it was, probably 2011 or 2012. We were testing a Nitro car at Lebanon Valley, and we run a B&J transmission, and it was used, and we didn't have a lot of interaction with the transmission. And after talking to Mike Strausberg, subsequently after it, realized that the reverser that was in it was an older design. Had a lot of problems getting the car into reverse and getting it out of reverse. Well, I was driving it, and I was backing up from the burnout, and I couldn't get the car to come out of reverse. And, a couple things play into it at that point. It's the air gap, the static air gap in the clutch, which I've learned how to set, perfectly now, which I didn't at the time, and then also engine RPMs, centrifugal weights, drag in the clutch, things like that all play into getting the car out of reverse or getting it into reverse. And I think what had happened at the time is we had nicked some reverser teeth and didn't know it, and then when we had it in reverse, it wouldn't come past the burrs that were on the teeth. And, I'm trying to get it out because I don't want to abort the pass, and the car's not moving, and I knew if I tried to get the car to move a little bit, it would have come undone. Well, I gave it a little too much throttle and jumped back quite a bit, 50 feet or so, at least 20, 30 feet. And, thankfully nobody was behind me. Got a pretty good talking to by the track manager at that point. And after that, realized that from now on, if I can't get out of reverse, we're shutting it off. We're not going to mess around. And that was probably the biggest faux pas that I had, because if someone was behind me, it could have got ugly quick. Okay,
now people that are listening, if they want to find out where you're going to be at, the best way would be the Bits and Pieces Nostalgia Funny Car page on Facebook?
Yep, they can do that, or our Bits and Pieces website. Also, just type in Bits and Pieces Funny Car. Our website comes up. I can get you the address. I wasn't quite ready for that, so just bear with me here, and I can get you our website address. We post all of our events right there on it. That is bits, the word and, piecesfc.com.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for your time to do the interview, Keith.
Great. I appreciate it, David. And thank you for the invite, and look forward to seeing everybody out there.